Hi everyone, and very welcome to yet another episode of Captains Speaking. My name is Peter Hörnfeldt, as always, and together with me I have...
Hey everybody, I am Ben Watts, as always, and today is a very special podcast because it's Peter Hörnfeldt's birthday. So happy birthday, Peter.
Thank you, yeah. So it's not going to be on the day that you listen to this, but it is on the day that we're recording it. So thank you very much, Ben.
Yeah, well, no, you don't look a day over 75, I reckon. I reckon you're looking good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. People would never know that I'm 70.
No, you're doing good. Yeah, the skincare's working.
Yeah. Cool. So it's been a pretty busy week for you, I've heard.
It's been busy. Yeah, it's been really busy. For a lot of you this is going back a week now for you guys, there was a lot of delays across Europe today, or recently, because of cyber attacks and so on Collins Aerospace, and there's been some air traffic control delays. So for all of us that have been out there flying, it's been pretty hectic. I actually had a fairly unusual day, actually, a couple of days ago. It was one of those days, I said one of those rosters this week where you have to kind of sit down when you open it up. It was a massive 4-sector training days, and I kind of look at it and go, my goodness. But yeah, when you're actually doing them, I'm enjoying it. But when you open the roster and you go, oh my God, here we go. Okay, I need to have a little sit down here. But it was one of those days anyway. We were doing London to Barcelona back again, and then London to Nuremberg initially, and then back, which wasn't too bad of a day, to be honest. But Barcelona, Peter, you've flown to Barcelona.
Yeah, Barcelona is always busy, and especially the groundwork. That's the thing. You see, like from London to Barcelona, you'd have a 2:15 or something, 2 hours 15 time, which is okay. But then you don't really calculate on the fact that it takes you almost half an hour to taxi in and out.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. Yeah, it's huge. And we use an air bridge there rather than front and back steps, don't we? Which means boarding and disembarking takes twice as long.
See, I don't think people really understand that. That's something that we should probably mention now while we're on it. And before I go into that, Navin is gesticulating in the background here saying, don't forget to tell people that you can listen to this podcast on other platforms than just YouTube. You can go to Spotify, you can go to anywhere where you find your favorite podcast and listen to this. So please, we love you here on YouTube. We love you to stay here. But if you want to listen to it in your car or somewhere else, then maybe you can listen to it on a different platform as well.
Well remembered. I think that was a record for you.
Yeah. That's
2 minutes.
I think that's the quickest I've ever remembered to talk about that. But anyway, so there is a great advantage with being able to use steps, external steps, to both board and disembark an aircraft. And of course, most people that are listening to this, especially if you're in the United States, you would be used to just going through what we call the finger, which is an air bridge, which is connected to the front left side of the aircraft, and you go in and out through that. If you're doing long-haul flights, there might be a finger that's connecting on 2 different places, but you're always going through the finger. But low-fare airlines love using the external steps and having people board from the apron, or at least from the back side and the front side. And what's the reason for that?
Just time. Efficient use of time makes it super quick.
Yep, that's the thing. It's very hard to. It actually it doesn't cut it in half, but it shaves off a good 10 minutes of boarding and disembarking. And it also has some other benefits when it comes to weight and balance while you're boarding. It's very hard to get the aircraft back heavy.
Yeah, correct.
When you're using this, it's because you're actually boarding at the same time from both directions.
Yeah.
Whilst when you're using the finger, people think, well, why would the aircraft become back heavy when you're using the finger? Because people are going towards the front, right? It should be front heavy. But the fact is that, especially during the winter, when people have to put on their jackets and stuff, what happens is that everyone in the front leaves early. They get up, they take their jackets, and they go out. And then the people in the back, they stay back a bit, because it's going to take a while for the front ones to get out. So you kind of sit down, you chill, and then you get up and you take your back jackets on. So what happens is that almost the entire front part of the aircraft empties out, and the back part of the aircraft is still full of passengers. And I've been based out of Barcelona when I've been going out doing the walk around, and I've seen the front strut being completely extended, just about to start tipping backwards, basically. So I've been onto the headset. We always have a headset connected in the front, and like telling the first officer, stop the disembarkation now. Because what happens then is if you tell the flight attendants to stop the disembarkation, They hold the passengers, which means that they form up a queue in the front. So now you get that counterweight in the front, which enables the people from the back to start moving forward again. But that's things that you never encounter when you're getting people up on both of the staff.
No, and it's happened, isn't it? There's been photos of aircraft literally sort of rotating on the stand,
for sure,
up towards the sky, where that has happened. And it's something you'll be really aware of. It's so easy if you're not careful. The cabin crew are really aware of it now, aren't they? They're very good at, kind of blocking that door.
Yeah, but we are the ones who see it. When we do the walk around and you see that extended strut in the front, you know that now you need to act quickly before this becomes a real problem.
Yeah, so that's the joys of working somewhere like that. So it started quite promising. It was a day. It's a bit of an emotional roller coaster because we started the day knowing we had a long day. The aircraft was coming late inbound, so the aircraft we were taking over still was airborne, still had half an hour to come. So we're sitting there with the crew.
No.
And we're like, oh man. So anyway, it's going to be one of those days, as lates often are. And then we see on our electronic flight bag the last two sectors disappear. They're suddenly removed, and we're like, oh. Win. They've seen that with the aircraft running late, rather than delay those two flights, they've obviously allocated another crew to do those on time. We're just doing Barcelona. Win. Great. Anyway, everyone's really happy. You're kind of just chatting away about the day. And then suddenly about 10 minutes later, two more sectors pop on.
No.
And this time it's going to Baden-Baden, which is in Germany. It's a little bit closer than Nuremberg, I think it was, but the departure time to Baden-Baden was about 10 minutes after we were supposed to arrive from Barcelona, so we knew that was never going to work. But anyway, we kind of set off to Barcelona eventually, get down to Barcelona, get on stand, get this boarding underway, and all of a sudden now we get this massive air traffic control slot. A slot is a window of opportunity we have to get airborne. So it was like 3 hours in the future. So we're sitting there on stand now, already about 40 minutes late because of these ATC delays. And we've got another departure time in 3 hours. You've got a window to make that 5 minutes before that time or 10 minutes after it. So, oh man, okay, there's no way we're going to do these last two sectors now. So that's the silver lining with this. We think, okay, it's going to be fine. And we let the cabin crew know, let the passengers know, we're kind of liaising with ops to try and minimize this delay. We can look at different routings and so on. And it does actually come forward. And we end up starting up, massive half an hour taxi to runway 24 left in Barcelona. Get airborne, lovely flight home. And when we're airborne, as you know, Peter, we lose connectivity with the outside world with regards to anything that's going on. So once we get our AFB goes into airplane mode, we have no idea what's going on in the outside world. So we kind of land in Stansted, tentatively come on stand, turn that EFB on to see, okay, is it just the two sectors? Are we going home? And then we have a bit of a curveball. Rather than seeing 4 sectors on there that we had when we left, so Barcelona and Nuremberg, we're hoping for 2. We see 3.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, no.
So we're like, okay, this is not good. So Baden-Baden has, Karlsruhe, Baden-Baden has a night curfew. Like a lot of places in Germany, there's a lot of places in Germany where you have what we call a night curfew, which is to protect the local neighborhoods from airplane noise. And Baden-Baden is one of them. So the latest you can get airborne from Baden-Baden, I think midnight local or 23:59, and we would have exceeded that. So we phone up ops and go, look guys, what's going on? And they go, look, there's a plan A and a plan B. Plan A is you fly to Baden-Baden, you get there before the curfew. We've called a crew off standby in Baden-Baden because it's a base. We're commissioning an aircraft as we speak to fly the passengers to do the return sector back to London. The plan A is you get to Baden-Baden, you can land, get everybody off, shut the aircraft down, and then peg it over to the aircraft that will be next to you, come back as passengers, you get back home. Plan B is you miss that flight because they have to get airborne before, it has to be wheels up before 23:59. Plan B, if you don't make that, we're going to put you in a hotel, you're deadhead back as a passenger the following morning. Okay, right, fine. Just to add insult to injury, we've also been given a slot to Baden-Baden. Oh, man.
It's one of those days. Yeah, I recognize that, but it's kind of I don't know. Before you continue, I don't know how you feel about these things, but generally when things start to get that complicated, you kind of mentally give up on it being a nice, like an easy day, and you just kind of start to enjoy the game of trying to make it as good as possible under the circumstances, and you start laughing with your colleague. It's like, I guess, I bet this is going to happen now, and it always happens as well.
It does. It's funny you should say that, because I was saying this to Navin earlier. Actually, there's a part of me that does enjoy it. There's the chaos, of course, the tiredness. You want to be home, but there's an element to the uncertainty of it, the unpredictability that I kind of like. I think that's part of the job, isn't it?
And we've discussed this before, or we talked about it. The fact that it's actually when you have problems that your skill as a commander has to be shown, because on a day-to-day basis, when everything goes as it should, then you are pilot flying and pilot monitoring. Every other sector, both you and your first officer does pretty much the same job with some small exceptions, but there's no real, there's no need for you to exercise your command experience. But when things start to go wrong, this is where you really, first of all, show why you get the higher salary, but also that's where you need to shine, because when you have you have passengers that are extremely delayed, cabin crew that's getting tired, first officer, you might be getting tired. You have to put that judgment into the mix, and dealing with it in the best possible way and keeping everyone in a good mood. It's not easy.
No, you very much have to wear the management hat, don't you? You become a manager of the operation, liaising with all different elements of the operation, whether it's the ground crew, the dispatchers, the passengers, cabin crew, ops, whatever it might be. You're there trying to make this whole game work as efficiently as you can. And you are having to think of everything, things that other people might forget, because if you forget it, then it's going to cause you issues down the line.
Which is, it's interesting as well, because this is something that we discuss a lot when it comes to the job as being a captain, that you are the one that has the whole picture. While all of the different stakeholders around you are very proficient and good at what they do. So you might have a very good dispatcher, for example. You might dealing with a very good crew controller, an ops controller in your company, or handling agents, or whatever it might be. But they only have their specific slice of the operation, which they prioritize. Like for the dispatcher needs to get the aircraft dispatched and wants to get paperwork out and wants to get you on the way. And the ground handlers obviously are putting on and taking off the bags, and the fueler wants to fuel, and all of that. They all do their thing. But as a commander, to a certain extent, also the first officer, but definitely as the captain, you are the one that has to make all of these people work together in a cohesive way so that the operation gets on the way.
Absolutely. And we're thinking of everything. We're looking to make sure that the crew are fit. Was a crew called off standby for this? Maybe they've been on duty longer than I have, that maybe no one's thought about. And can they do this delayed flight and so on? There's so many things you've got to be thinking about. And but anyway, we kind of made that. We had a plan. We're like, fine, we'll go. We ended up going off to Baden-Baden. Very short flight, hour and 15 minutes or so. And we're looking at the time. We're looking, okay, we're going to be on stand about 15 minutes before that aircraft needs to depart. So we're like, okay, this is going to be this. It's doable. It's tight. It could go either way. It reminded me of those. Remember the old Top Gear races where some Richard Hammond and May and Clarkson want to be on a train, want to be in an airplane, want to be in a car, and they got a race. And you're like, hey, who's going to make it?
Yep.
It's a little bit like that. And I think this could go either way.
Because that's to make people understand this. 15 minutes sounds like it's a lot, but remember, you have 15 minutes. If you land 15 minutes before they have to get off, that means that you need to get on the shocks. You need to start disembarking, get all of the passengers disembarked. You need to secure down the aircraft, do the shutdown and the secure checklist, turn it off, retract the stairs, close the doors, and go. And that's in 15 minutes. So it is tight.
It is. It's really tight. It could really go on either way. And the danger that I said to the FO, so look, the danger here is we rush. And that's where mistakes happen. So as much as we do not want to be away from home tonight, we want to get home. Once we close this door, we're just going to keep it standard. We just do it as we always do, because that we all know that the consequences of rushing. But it takes a bit of a kind of forethought to be aware that you don't fall into that trap, because it's so easy, isn't it, to fall into that trap of just single-mindedly going. Anyway, we get there, we land. We're taxiing onto stand, and we can see our aircraft. And what we're hoping for is that aircraft has got a big queue of passengers on it, waiting to queue up. So we've got time. We're taxiing onto stand, and we can see that the last passenger's going up the stairs. And we're like, oh man, this is tight. And come on stand, shut down checks, open the door. Passengers start coming off, and passengers in no rush at all. You can see the cabin crew, they're wanting to scream at them and kick them out the door probably, but they're like, "Sir, can I help you with that bag? Bring it down." And they're being super, super polite. And anyway, we get them off. We do the shutdown checks, and it's now like 5 minutes to go. And we're thinking, okay, we might make this. And then we find out that the ground ops controller comes up, the head of ops, lovely guy, by the way, and says, "Look, that aircraft next to you, they've also got a slot. They've got to be closing up in 1 minute. Can you guys get off this airplane there in 1 minute?" Now, the cabin crew were just getting their bits and their VPOSs off the back still, down the back. And I said, "I don't think so."
No.
Anyway, I said, "Guys, if you can make it, make it." So they came running down the thing. We came down the steps of our aircraft. We literally got onto the apron, and then we could hear the air stairs retracting on that aircraft. So we looked at each other.
Because that's the thing. In the other cockpit, there are 2 pilots that are looking at a slot that they know that they can under no circumstances miss.
Nope.
So their priority is going to be to get themselves and their passengers over. And obviously, they would like to help you guys.
They would.
But if in a similar situation, you would be the same. No, this does not work. I cannot strand all of these passengers here because we wanted to wait another minute for those guys. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't work. No, in a normal day, they would hang around, but they've got to be wheels up at 23:59 or they're stuck here as well with all those passengers.
Yep.
So they did the right thing, but we just watched this air stairs. We watched them start up and we're like, okay, now what? So plan B. And the ops controller, Marcus, actually, I said I'd give him a shout out. He knew about, he watches the podcast. He's a big fan of the podcast.
Awesome.
Absolute gentleman. He went over and above that night. He should have finished and be on his way home. And he stayed and made sure we were well looked after. So we went into the ops room with Marcus and the crew, phoned ops and go, "Look, okay, plan B, we didn't make that flight. And okay, leave it with us. We'll get you a hotel." Because they couldn't have pre-booked it because they were hoping we would have got on that flight. Now, just to add insult to injury in this, we found out that there's a music festival in Baden-Baden that night.
Oh, of course, that's what I was talking about. There's no way that these things are connected. So
No.
it's just like one thing after the other. Yeah.
So there's no, we're sitting there now for like half an hour, 40 minutes. It's like 2 a.m. now. Well, no, 1 a.m. I'm like, okay, we've heard nothing. So I phone up ops and go, "Look, we're working. We're trying to find you a hotel. There's nothing out there. Everything's fully booked." And a lot of hotels in Germany or in that area apparently like close at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Reception closes, which I found very strange, but they couldn't get through to a lot of them. So yeah, we couldn't get a hotel. Anyway, we're there in the end for the best part of 2 hours while they're desperately trying to find us a hotel. We end up finding a hotel in a different country. So we end up having to go to Strasbourg to get the hotel. So now we're told, "Okay, look, Ben, we've got your hotel finally. It's in Strasbourg. We've ordered you a taxi. It's going to be there in 15 minutes. The drive is about an hour, maybe a bit less if you're lucky." So we're like, okay, fine. So we end up piling this into this taxi. We drive best part of an hour to Strasbourg, get into this hotel. And there's all roadworks around Strasbourg, so he couldn't drop us at the hotel. So he said, "Look, it's about a 2-minute walk that way. You okay?" I said, "Yeah, it's fine. Just let us out." And then he said to us, "Just be careful. This is a really dodgy part of town. There's a lot of muggins here." And then he closed the door and drove off.
Of course it did. You don't want to be stuck there.
Yeah, we are in pilot uniforms. I'm like, oh God, okay, this would be a great ending to the night. But anyway, we managed to find this hotel without getting mugged. And then unfortunately, the flight back the next morning was like relatively early in the morning. So we ended up getting about 3 or 4 hours sleep to position back as passengers. And we got back. But the silver lining was I had the rest of the day off when I did get back. But that was my 24 hours anyway.
Cool. Well, meanwhile, I got up. I had a nice breakfast in the morning. I drove my kids. Well, I had a nice cup of coffee with my wife. Then I drove my kids to school, and then I went in here and I did a couple of video preparations and a video, and then I went home. And that was my day. And then people are wondering why I took a leave of absence for a while. Like, to be perfectly honest, though, when I hear these stories, I do feel a little bit like getting back into the fray, because even though they are on the day a real pain, it actually turns out that those are the kind of days that you remember.
They are.
And if you're with a good crew as well, you kind of laugh it off. And I don't really enjoy the whole sleeping just 3-4 hours and going back again, because I prefer actually to stay a little bit longer, because then you can have a nice breakfast with the crew and maybe go out and see something and then take an afternoon flight back. You're not going to be flying anyway. No. And you're going to be, when you get back after a day like that, you're going to be absolutely knackered. There's nothing you can do. I always prefer to get my sleep.
Me too.
Like
Me
I
too.
need my 7, 8 hours of sleep per night.
Yeah, I slept well last night. Let's put it that way. But yeah. But any plans for your birthday before we go on to the next bit?
Ooh, so no, today's Monday when we record this, and actually, my lovely wife Sandra had completely surprised me with a motorcycle for my birthday. But she also understood that it was like this is really the beginning of autumn now, and it's funny because down here around the Mediterranean, they say that each season has 3 months, and it starts on particular dates, and almost to the day you can see a change in weather. So she gave me the motorcycle on Saturday because the weather was like 27 degrees and sun, and I could go out with my friends and I could enjoy it. And we went out on this route up in the mountains here and had coffee. Like it was lovely. And then we had me and Sandra. We went out in the evening, had dinner, and we went to a concert. Like it was the best day ever. And today it's like 14 degrees and rain, and
Wow.
it switches like that here, and then it is literally now there's going to be 3 months of autumn, and then in the like the 22nd or so of December starts 3 months of winter, and then starts three, and it's we're talking it might be variations with 2-3 days for and back, but it's extremely like I laugh at that because in Sweden in Sweden you can have summer into September,
Yeah.
but most likely you have summer into beginning of August, and then it's autumn.
Mm.
Like there can be months of difference between the different seasons, but down here no. So to answer your question, I'm going to go to the gym after we finish this, and I'm going to go home. Well, actually, I'm going to record a Autopilot episode, and then I'm going to go home and we're going to have some cake tonight. Maybe eat some sushi.
Very nice.
And then it's it's a working week, so
Back to normal. Yeah.
back to normal again. But it's not like when you're turning 44, which I am today. It's not like their birthday is the one and only thing that happens to you.
You woke up at 5 in the morning, itching to open your presents. Then
No, I actually woke up this morning, and I think that's the first time this happened to me, and I did not realize it was my birthday. And that
really?
it was probably because I had basically the best day ever on Saturday, and we didn't celebrate it because it's bad luck to celebrate your birthday before your birthday. In Spain, that's what they say. So it was not the official celebration, but it kind of was a celebration. Like we had an awesome day.
Fair enough.
So I didn't miss anything. But otherwise, just like I said, I'm going to Copenhagen.
Yeah.
In the middle of the week to do a keynote speech about leadership and communication, which I'm really looking forward to. But apart from that, nothing special.
Well, sounds good. Well, so if we go on to what we're going to talk about, one of the first things we're going to talk about, wake turbulence.
Wake turbulence. Yes. Why are we talking about wake turbulence, Ben?
We're talking about wake turbulence because I actually had a little bit of it a little while ago. That's why we had it, which I thought would be quite an interesting thing to talk about. Now, wake turbulence, first of all, should we talk about what wake turbulence is? How would you define wake turbulence?
Okay, so wake turbulence, when a wing creates lift, it does so by, it's a couple of different things that are involved, but one of the ways that it does it is it increases the pressure on the lower part of the wing, and it decreases the pressure on the upper part of the wing. That's why the wing is shaped the way it is, and that's what happens when you angle a wing into the airstream. So you create a little bit of lower pressure above and upper pressure above. Now, the thing with pressures, and this goes for weather and it goes for everything, is that the pressures will always try to equalize themselves. It wants to find an equilibrium. So if you have a high pressure underneath something and a low pressure above, the air is going to want to go from the high pressure to the low pressure. And the only real way that it can do that on a wing is on the wingtips. So on the wingtips, as you're flying and you're creating these conditions, you will see the air going from below and up to top and creates these vortices that just propagates. And the more lift you take up, the more strong these vortices will be. And they, we don't really want them. That's why you see winglets and things like that. We want to make sure that we minimize those vortices because they actually cost energy. For the aircraft.
Yeah.
But it's impossible to completely eradicate them.
Yeah. But what these vortices do is they flow backwards out kind of from the both winglets, rotating back behind it, and they gradually kind of disperse laterally out and they descend. And the downside to that, particularly, and it's directly proportional to the weight of the aircraft. So the heavier the aircraft, as Peter said, the more lift it needs to produce. The more lift, the greater that pressure differential. So the stronger these vortices. They're like horizontal tornadoes. Think of them that way.
And they look like it. They look exactly like horizontal tornadoes. If you go out now, you're watching this, and you go and Google wake vortices, you'll see how they look.
Yeah.
And if you ever go out to an airport, this is something I actually recommend people to do. If you stand on the extended center line of a runway and you hear, and there's a big jet coming over, landing, just a few seconds after, you're going to hear this like whip sounding. Yeah. It's like...
That's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah. And that is those vortexes falling down to the ground next to you.
Yeah, they descended about 300 or 500, between 300 and 500 feet a minute. So the aircraft was 200 foot above you. About a minute later, or 30 seconds later, you'll feel it. It gets really windy. And the problem for an aircraft, if you're too close behind that, you can get caught into this vortex, into this wake turbulence, and it can range from something really mild to actually something really dangerous. Yeah. And we mitigate it in a lot of ways to prevent it being dangerous. We'll talk about that in a moment. But often you'll be flying along, and maybe an aircraft might have crossed in front of you 5-10 minutes ago, maybe 1,000 foot above, and you might just get through a little bit of this now. But it's so dissipated that it kind of feels a bit like just a quick rumble, doesn't it? As you go through it for a second, it'd be really smooth.
It's a quick stutter.
Yeah, like a sharp kind of stutter, and that's it. It'd be done and dusted as you go through this bit of turbulent air. But anyway, I was flying into Athens, and Athens, it was super busy going in there. We checked in on approach, and we were told we were number 15 in the queue to be vectored. They weren't holding aircraft, strangely. It's really unusual. When it's really busy, normally you'll go to a hold. They were just vectoring people all over the place, and people kept joining the frequency, and the biggest one I heard the largest number was number 22. So you're number 22 for the approach. So we were number 15. We're getting sequenced in, and we were told we're following a heavy aircraft. So aircraft are categorized by their level of wake turbulence. So typically, if my ATPL days go correct, up to 7 tons. If an aircraft weighs up to 7 tons, that's light, a light category. Between 7 and I think it's 136 tons, it's medium category. And if your aircraft weighs more than 136 tons at max takeoff weight, then it's a heavy. Then it goes into super, which would be like an A380. And depending on the weight category, there'll be certain separation minima, the certain distance you have to be behind that, which we'll talk about more in a moment. But we were told we're following a heavy, and it turned out it was a 777. Now, the minimum separation we need to be behind a heavy is normally 5 miles. And we could see their TCAS return on our nav display, and they were about 7 or 8 miles away. So we're like, okay, great. We saw them visually. They were on a long final. We're kind of coming in on base, like 90 degrees, and they were on final. They were 7 miles ahead. We're like, okay, fine. We'll slow down, keep at least that distance. Great. So fine. We're starting to set up for this approach now, quite a long way out, about 20 miles out. About to turn onto the extended center line, FO was flying, and all of a sudden, the aircraft just rolls about 30, 35 degrees to the right. Autopilot jumps out. So you get the mech, and the aircraft just rolls. And obviously it's just out of nowhere. So the FO correctly just brings it back. And it came back as it should have done, got the autopilot engaged. And then within about another second, it went the other way. We got about 30, 35 degrees the other way. Autopilot tripped out again. I took control at that point, brought it back, got it engaged, re-established on the center line, flew the approach. We told air traffic what had happened, but they were about 8 miles ahead of us. They were well outside the separation.
You see, that's the thing. I mean, the idea of distance separation is great, but it also depends on the wind direction.
It does.
And it depends a lot on
the
heat of how hot is the air? Is it stable? It can stay up longer, or it can start drifting in a way that is not anticipated. And especially if you guys were on a vector, you might actually have hit. If they were on a final and you were vectored in, it could have blown straight towards you.
That's right. That's what happened.
It's impossible to keep it complete 100% free.
No. And it was, once we'd done that, it was back on the approach and everything was fine. But it was probably the worst experience I've had of wake turbulence. I've had quite a few, rough moments of wake turbulence, and you're going to if you're flying. But that was probably the most eye-opening one I've had. It certainly woke you up, let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. By the way, this is one of the reasons why we have the seatbelt sign on as we're descending in. Because the thing with these things, I know a lot of people are going to be asking, can you see this on the weather radar? No, you can't, because there's no moisture in these things. It's just air that's moving really, really quickly. So So you can't see them. You can anticipate them by knowledge, which is what we do. Like anytime that I'm in cruise, for example, and you're sitting up there and you see an aircraft that's crossing 1,000 feet above you, then I sit and I look, okay, so how far away is that? When are we going to reach it? And you have these trend vectors on your navigation display that shows 30 seconds of a trend, which means that, okay, I can see that I'm, for example, a minute and a half away from where they're crossing now. They're 1,000 feet above. Let's see, it's descending with 400 feet per minute. It's going to be 800 feet lower it's like 700 feet lower. We might actually hit that thing. So if you're ever in an aircraft and it's completely calm and suddenly the seatbelt sign goes on, like bing, one of two things are true. Like either there is like someone needs to use the toilet, or most likely there is a potential of wake turbulence. And if you see that happening, and then it takes about a minute or something, and then all of a sudden it just out of nowhere, it's just a shudder of the aircraft, like sudden, violent, and it feels mechanical. It doesn't feel like normal turbulence, which is kind of soft and movement. This is like a giant child grabs onto the aircraft and shakes it suddenly. Then what you've just experienced is us flying through at this part of these vortexes. And something that you can also see, which is really fascinating, is if you're sitting parallel and you're flying parallel to an aircraft and you look at the contrails, right? So you can see the contrails that goes out behind them. You can actually, if you look, you can see that below the contrail, you'll see the wake vortices falling down. It's not actually the contrail in itself, because that tends to stay more or less at the same altitude. But some of the contrail gets taken up by the vortexes, and you can see that it kind of falls down like two little legs sticking out behind the aircraft.
That's it.
And that's those ones.
Yeah, and it's funny enough, I had something similar coming a little while now, but there was an A380 coming the other direction, 1,000 foot above us. So we're up in the cruise at 370. There's this A380 coming the other way, and looks incredible when you see this thing 1,000 foot above with about 1,000 mile an hour closing speed. It looks awesome, but I also knew that they have nasty wake turbulence.
Ooh, they are nasty.
They're horrible. Yeah. You can see like you said, in the contrails of those, you can really see the contrails getting pulled down and spread out. So I asked for a vector 45 to the left, and they said, "Is that for wake turbulence?" I said, "Well, yeah, potentially." So yeah, no worries. We turned, but sure enough, about a minute later, we still got some pretty nasty wake turbulence, even though we were diverging at 45 degrees.
So did you diverge with or against the wind?
I went at downwind. Upwind with the upwind. Yeah,
interesting. Because the 380 you have to be very careful with, because it has caused a real accident. We had a business jet that was flying close to an A380 that was going down to Australia, and they got into the wake turbulence, and it actually caught it. So it twisted it around. They rolled several times as they fell down, and there was some light injuries to the people on board. Like there was no fatal injuries, and they managed to divert and land, but the aircraft was written off. It was structurally damaged, so it could not be used again.
Yeah, the risk is real, but the just to put a more kind of realistic light on the severe stuff is rare. This is
very rare.
We mitigate this a lot by making sure we have correct separation, being mindful of wind directions and so on. Same for departure as well. Rather than distance, because we're all on the runway, it will be done in time.
Yeah.
So if there's say for example a 747 departing in front of me, we need to wait at least 2 minutes from them getting airborne before we can begin our takeoff roll. And if it's there's other, like if it's a heavy or a super, it could be 3 minutes. So we mitigate that by giving it time to dissipate.
Yeah.
And
so it's a fascinating thing. It's one of those things that I don't think people realize, but it's also part of the work that we do. Like when a pilot works, we are constantly scanning for potential threats. And I think this is one of the main difference between, for example, someone driving a car from A to B. Now you're driving a car from A to B. You don't, like, obviously you keep track of the traffic around you, and you plan where to turn and things like that. But you don't really sit and think, is there an elk about to jump out there? What's my braking distance? You don't sit and constantly think about how things could potentially go wrong and how you mitigate against it. You just do. But in aviation, that's actually the job. This is why we use automatics so much, because if we can put the automatics in, and let the autopilot do a lot of the actual stick and rudder flying. It means that we can dedicate our work on seeing potential threats coming up, mitigating against them, making sure that it never becomes dangerous. And it's one of the things that have really increased safety. Funnily enough, since I started now riding a motorcycle, which I've just done the last few months, I see a lot of similarities because my friends, for example, that I ride with now, riding a motorcycle is all about looking at threats constantly. We ride now in a group of 3 or 4. One of the most experienced is at the front, and one of the most experienced is at the back, and then me typically in the middle, which is less experienced. And they will sit and like, okay, there's a car coming up now, or even there's a motorcycle behind the car. There's a chance that he might try to overtake. Be careful, and constantly briefing forth and back, like, okay, these just beware that there's a little bit of moisture up in the turn coming up, or there's some gravel on the road. Be careful. So we communicate all the time.
You got comms, have you?
Yeah. It's
nice.
Everyone have comms in their helmets, which means that there's a lot of talking going on. But I really recognize that whole thinking about, okay, there's stuff here that might try to kill you constantly. So you think about that.
Yeah.
Whilst in a car, it's not at all like that.
No, and it is what it is enabled. The automation enables us to do that. And as a last line of defense to make sure it doesn't turn horribly nasty is we train pilots to do what we call upset prevention or recovery training, UPRT. It's a big part of airline training, and it's something where we fly the aircrafts and we train pilots in a number of ways. But in the sim, one of the things we'll do is I'll sit as an instructor next to whoever I'm training, and I'll get them to close their eyes. And I'll then try and disorientate them. So I'll move the sim in different ways, and I'll put it into what we call an upset position, as though they maybe have got caught in wake turbulence, and it suddenly goes into something very unusual. And I'll put it maybe a steep nose down, steep angle of bank. I'll say, okay, open your eyes and recover. And they've now got to process what the aircraft is doing, and then they'll do a set recovery, depending on whether it's nose high, nose low, high angle of bank, whatever it might be, to make sure, because the danger when you've got an aircraft in an upset is you can overstress the aircraft. You can, but what I mean by that is by putting an aggressive kind of control input, you can overstress the aircraft. You can put too much G on the airplane and overstress the wings. And so we need to make sure that we don't overspeed it, we don't underspeed the aircraft, and we don't pull too much G or negative G, so that we can smoothly recover out.
It's not easy to do. It's not easy to train this in a simulator, because one of the things that we cannot simulate is G-forces.
No.
So we can simulate certain accelerations and decelerations and turns and feelings, but we cannot simulate a high G-force. For that, you'd need the simulator to spin in one of those centrifuges.
Yeah.
What we do as instructors is that we put them in, just like Ben said, put them into this upset, whatever it might be. And then we have a little screen on our right, and it shows the envelope of what you're allowed to do, what the aircraft is allowed to do. And we'll see how they deal with it. And if they pull too much, or if they do something that's too abrupt, we'll see that it goes outside of the envelope, and we just repeat it. We say, okay, now that was a bit too much pull. And the reason for that, obviously, since if they find themselves in this situation in real life, they are also going to feel the G-forces, right? So it's going to be slightly different. But hopefully, by training this over and over and over again, the mechanic response to it, and the way that they interpret what they see on their primary flight display is going to be so ingrained that they will be able to, they'll hear Ben's voice in the back of their head saying, don't pull that hard when they do it. And that helps.
And it's something, don't forget as well, we also do this in light aircraft. As an instructor teaching commercial pilots years ago, we would do this. It's much more fun. You do it in a light aircraft as well. So you close your eyes, and this time you can pull some G and really get the vestibular system all confused. They'll think they're nose high rolling left. They'll open their eyes and they're actually nose low rolling right. And then they've got to recover. And the technique's the same.
And this is something that, yes, we did. I did some of that when I did my training, but it wasn't really put into as a mandatory thing.
Right.
As an upset prevention and recovery training, UPRT, is now you have to do it in and I think it has to be an aerobatic kind of
like a Slingsby or something like that.
Yeah. One of those aircraft that can take it. I have been invited actually to go up and do the course with some flight schools, because they want to highlight the fact that we do this, and I think it's a brilliant idea.
It is. Yeah.
I think I would puke. if they would put me into that now. But I think it's a great idea that all new beginners, all new pilots that are getting into the profession, have actually felt what it's like to be rolled over, and
Because experiencing G is nothing else like it on Earth, is there? You can't really explain what G is like. If you're pulling 4 or 5 or 6, 7G, I try and articulate it to my kids sometimes. I've been fortunate enough to fly things like extras, the extra 300. No, not the extra, the Pitt Special, sorry. I'm hopefully flying an extra 300, the Hawk Hunter and so on. And when you're kind of pulling, the most I've pulled is just under 7G. And it's a very, very strange sensation that everything just feels 6 or 7 times heavier. And it really has an effect on you. It really does. If you've never experienced it before, and the first time you experience this is when you're in an aircraft. Not that you experience 7G and 7.3. You've got bigger problems if you're doing that.
Yeah.
But it's something that it's good to experience in a training environment for sure.
For sure. Yeah. No, but it also goes to show something that we keep talking about on this podcast and on our videos, that the industry is adapting to what they see. So we talked a few episodes back about the fact that they saw that maybe people weren't getting as much exposure to manual handling as they should.
Yeah.
They were using the automatics a bit too much. Children of the Magenta Line, basically, if you want to go back and listen to that, that's the episode name. But now, like as a response to that, they came with the UPRT as well, as part of try to mitigating against it, making sure that people do get more stick and rudder feeling and get more extreme experiences, both in the real aircraft, but also recurrently in the simulator.
And going back to wake turbulence, Peter, do you think AI can help the industry with a bit of prediction there?
You're fishing for my AI skepticism here.
I am.
So I am like this. What's happened to me is I've gone from being really, really curious about artificial intelligence. I actually had an AI bot very early on. Several years ago, I had an AI bot in my application, Mentor Aviation, which unfortunately we're closing down now because it's just not so many people using the app. But anyway, and I was really curious about it and thinking what it could be. But the more I learn about the AI, the more skeptical I become. I think I see that you have a different opinion, and I'm looking forward to this. No, I think that there are going to be areas where AI is going to excel, and that is going to be things like pattern recognition, looking for like mammogram scans, looking for breast cancer, looking for maybe ways to combine amino acids and proteins in order to create new medicines and stuff. I do not think that AI will ever be able to do anything that requires any type of artistic genius. That they
no. I don't know.
And the reason for that is because of the way that it is. It's a prediction engine. I think there's too many people out there that think that these things are actually intelligent. While in reality, what they are is they're trying to predict the next move all the time. And you could argue that maybe that's what we and our brains do as well, to a certain extent. But an AI today takes all what it finds on the internet, all of the information that is being fed in, and then it tries to use that in order to predict what the next move will be, which means that it will never do anything that is outside of that, something that no one has ever done before.
True, but is that not the case with anything early? Is that not the case with early search engines, even aviation? You go back to aviation and look at the limits. If you look at search engines back in 2000, you type something in, it'll give you garbage, something really spammy. But look how that has developed now and become such an integral part of our world.
Yeah, it's becoming worse because of AI.
But does that mean, though, just because AI now has got hallucinations in it, does that mean that it's always going to be that way? Does it not mean that it's going to continue learning, continue improving?
Yeah, it will continue. I think it... I think it will continue to be better in certain cases. And I mean, to a certain extent, a search engine is pattern recognition, right? So machine learning would work really well with search because it can figure out, Ben usually thinks like this, so I'm going to be using this. It could be, honed into your particular skills. But what I'm talking about is when you need to be creative, when you need to do something that is interesting. Now, I have a feeling people listen to our podcast because we have personalities, because we will say something that people didn't expect from time to time. and we will share whatever we know. But AI and the way that the large language models work today does not do that. And the reason I'm saying this is not just because I just suddenly became skeptic. It's just because we've been using it to try to find, ideation, for example, for coming up with new interesting video concepts, or like what or put a video title on, or even like suggestion how a thumbnail would be. But every time we do, it is consistently worse than if a human does it. A great example is our thumbnails, which I think a lot of people might have recognized now have changed on Autopilot.
Yeah.
So for a long time, we thought about, okay, so how do we, as a content creator, you always want as many people as possible to see what you've done, right? Has many reasons for that. It obviously, it's a monetary thing. You want to be able to pay for your team and everything, and that's only possible if not enough people watches it. So you always try to find, okay, so how do we do this? This is, if you use AI, or if you use the way that AI would do things, all thumbnails would look the same. There would always be shocked faces on it. There would always be red arrows on it. There would always be an emotive word on it. And that's how my thumbnails from Autopilot used to look up until recently, when one of our graphic designers, Ben, came and said, listen, no, the brand Autopilot is about being positive, it's about being constructive, it's about teaching, it's about learning. Why don't we do thumbnails that are about that still shows that this is it's an accident that has real repercussions and it looks dramatic, but we do so within a very defined framework. And when we did that, like if I would asked ChatGPT 100 times, it would never have said that, because it would only say what it knows is successful from other channels. Like, you should have a bigger red arrow, or you should have a more emotive word. But it would never come out and say, you need to change your approach to this because your channel is actually different than what these thumbnails are showing. Because that's outside of, and what, before you get to rebut, what we've seen now is all of a sudden, while we've done this, the back catalog, the old videos that we've done, they started to come alive. People are starting to watch them.
Yeah.
Because it turns out that that's actually what people wanted to see. They got a little bit pissed off. My core viewers, which are probably listening to this now, they've watched my videos in spite of the thumbnails, not because of the thumbnails. They're like, okay, the thumbnails is for something else, but I know that it's going to be Petter and Ben behind those thumbnails saying something. So now when the thumbnails are actually in line with the brand, they are more attractive to the really important ones, the core ones, the core viewers that really appreciate what we do.
Well, I'd say two things to that. Firstly, I would say AI is in its infancy. It's very much at learning. I'd liken it now to maybe someone that's just starting out in a career. If you look at any of us when we're starting out a career, we make mistakes. We don't come up with brilliant solutions. But what we do is we learn from that. And we apply what we learn, so that in 3 or 4 or 5 years, we're so much better. We're like the Bens of the thumbnail world, who can make these incredible things and look at the brief and understand what needs to be done. The way and the rate that AI is learning, I think that can get there. I think you could feed in. And I think the second thing I would say is the quality of AI output is very much dependent on the input. I've learned that by getting very particular prompts into AI, even at this early stage of its career as such, you can get vastly different results. If you can tell it not to agree with you, not to look at the norm, to do something a bit different, this is the values of the brand, this is what I'm trying to achieve, feed it as much as you can of what you want it to do, suddenly it will surprise you, I've found. And I think 5 years from now, I think AI could be very, very different to where we are now. We'll look back and go, my goodness, it was hopeless back then. A bit like looking back at us when we were starting.
True, but I am also I'm going to stand by this. I think that AI, you're absolutely right? AI is as bad now as it's ever going to be. It's only going to get better from here. But I think that what we will find is that over the next year, I would say, AI is going to start to be defined into where it's going to be useful. It's going to be put into stuff where we would have never been able to do this particular thing, and I think that is within medical science, for example, and search and so on, without AI. But I think that anything that has creative in it, It's just I think it's not the reason I say that is because I think it's actually getting worse at these things. It's not going forward, and that is partially because that it's now starting to feed on its own creation. So we're starting like it's using whatever information is out on the internet to train itself, and now AI is starting to put stuff out on the internet.
But don't
So,
we do that too as
yeah,
humans?
but we go forward in leaps because of someone doing the complete opposite of what people expect. Like the Picassos of the world would not. No one would have thought that Picasso's style of painting would be something that we would like to look at because it looks weird, right? But then someone comes out and thinks completely differently, way outside of the norm, and it changes the way that humanity moves. But AI can never, by its very own way that is written, can never do that because it always feeds on its own. It feeds on what's already happened.
But I think that's the AI now. I think the way looking at what AI is aiming towards, I think it can get this autonomous creativity.
Do you think that is going towards general intelligence?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it can potentially get to the point where it's much more autonomous and can come up with new. It is already coming up with new ideas, isn't it? In various.
It's not. It's not. It's not coming with any new ideas. It's just coming with variations of the same ideas. But what you're talking about is general aviation, general intelligence.
Yeah.
And to answer your question that you came with, is that the day that AI actually has general intelligence, as in when it has surpassed into the realm of coming up with new and novel ideas, not just being like redacted, just creating what already exists, then I think that AI will be flying the aircraft as well. Then our job, basically none of the jobs that exist today will be needed, right? So we will have AIs flying the aircraft then, providing that it can be hosted inside of the aircraft, obviously, and that doesn't need to have some kind of uplink. But up until that point, we're talking about large language models and the machine learning that we're seeing right now. There's no way that it will be able to do it.
No, and I think the future, the worrying thing for a lot of us is that the general intelligence future is a possibility, is a possible outcome.
Yes, but I'm going to say that it's like this is a little bit of my private war at the moment because I think that we are just like we were. Remember back in around the year 2000, where everyone thought that we are now everything is going to be on the internet, right? And then it turned out not to be the case, at least not for another 2 decades, right? Or at least a decade and a half. And the whole stock market crashed into one of the biggest recessions that we've ever seen, right? I think that's where we are with AI now. I think everyone in humanity thinks that AI is going to be able to do everything. I think that the big companies out there are projecting huge savings with the help of AI that is just not realistic with the type of technology that we have right now. We are not going to be able to do what AI are promising. And when people realize that, which I think is going to happen within the next year, I think we're going to see one mother of a stock market crash.
Yeah, the stock market crash, I think there's lots of talks about that. But I think if the amount of money that's being pumped into AI at the moment from all the big hitters, they're deep into this now. They're committing to this. And I think when you start pumping that amount of money into something, it is developing, it is learning, the potentials there are huge.
Without a doubt. But I think that the thing now is that when, and by the way, this is not investment advice in any way, shape, or form. If you're listening to this is just us speculating here wildly. We have no way of doing that. But if you look at the way that stock market reacts to an investment in AI now, basically anyone who says that we are investing in AI will get an increase on their stock price, right? So the more you pump into it, the more people are expecting it to return. But at some point, the AI needs to start delivering as well. Like at some point, you're going to need to start seeing that these that these companies are actually reaping the benefits of all of these billions that they're pumping in. And so far, very little.
I think they've got an eye on the longer game. I think if you look at, imagine, I don't know, aviation back in the early 1905, 1910, there's a potential there, people investing money, but just because a few planes crashed and it wasn't working for a long period of time, if people walked away, it wouldn't have been a thing. but they kept with it. They kept pumping money. They kept developing, and it kept getting better and better and better. And now look where we are. I think that's potentially where AI could potentially go. It might not be a quick thing, but I think long term, I think it's here to stay.
Even for like creation, you'd be listening to an AI podcast.
No, for that, no. No, I don't think that. I think that I'm not saying it's going to take over everything. I think the more that AI comes into the world, the more people are going to want genuine human interaction and human content for sure.
That's what I think as well. This is what I was getting at. That AI, at least, I mean, if it would be general intelligence, then yes, I might listen to an AI podcast. Then if they actually decided to use our language, that is. But the way that the large language models work and the way that I've seen them work when I've been working with them is just not. It's not impressive when it comes to coming up with novel ideas and how to present things.
No, I don't think so. There's certainly nowhere near it yet, but I think the future, I can certainly envision a future where it is.
It's going to be interesting to sit back now in a few years and see.
Yeah, we'll look back. We'll
right here.
Back. Yeah.
Cool. Listen, we're up to 55 minutes. Let's take a few questions from the audience, shall we?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, and let's see. We have Spiros has been sending questions here. Apparently, there's been loads of questions being sent out. Which I'm really happy to hear, because that's how we kind of feed into the ideas of what we want to talk about on this podcast. So continue sending in. What was the email address again that people were supposed to send this to? Nevin?
Captains@mentalpilot.com.
I think there was captains@mentalpilot.com. Thank you, Nevin. Okay, let's see. Hi, Petter and Ben. Loving your podcast. Oh. I have a question for Petter. Petter, whilst you are on your break from flying, are you doing anything to keep your license type rating current? For example, sim sessions. If not, if you wish to return to flying at some point, what do you have to do in order to be current again? Thank you, from Claire. Yeah, so at the moment, I have not done anything. I have spent the last 2 years completely outside of the cockpit, which I am really starting to feel now. And I am in contact with an ATO, that's an aviation training organization, that is willing to help me to start putting it together. At this point, when I've been away for 2 years, I need to do some theoretic lessons first of all, and then I need to do a training session in the sim and a license proficiency check with an examiner. So I am planning to do that, hopefully within the next few months, certainly within the next half years. Then, in order for me to go back flying as a captain, I am going to need to do some serious amount of training. So I'm going to go out with the line training captain. So first get my licenses back active, my type rating back active. Then I need to go out with a training captain. I need to fly together with that training captain for a few sectors at least in order to kind of get back into the saddle again. And only once that has been done and they have then decided that they think that I'm good enough, I've done some line checks and stuff with someone like Ben, then I would be able to come back. But the longer I wait, the longer the road back is. There's no question about that. And I feel it. Like, I wouldn't mind going in, for example, into the right seat as a first officer for a while, actually, to kind of warm things back up again before going back to the left. And I think it's a super important quality to have, to know your limitations and know that you're not as shit hot. Like, I have the theoretical knowledge, absolutely, but the practical knowledge needs to be maintained, and I haven't. So I would need to do some serious work to get back on.
I think it's something we all felt during COVID when we weren't flying. When you take that break away, it does take a bit of time to get that capacity back while you're flying. Like the raw skills you often keep, but you lose that capacity.
And it's a lot of that like when you're flying constantly, like you are now, Ben. There's a lot of the decision making that goes on, the processes that goes on in the background in your head, almost subconsciously. You're thinking about things, but as soon as you take a break and you come back, all of those need to be active processes. And when you have to take all of those active processes and actually think of, oh, well, what should I be doing now? What's that scan flow? How does it sound like? Then that takes up a lot of your capacity. So that you have less of the spare capacity needed in order to have a good overview of the situation. So automatically your situational awareness becomes smaller.
Yeah, exactly right.
Right, let's see another question then. Hi, Petter and Ben. Question. Could you go over various minor emergencies from a passenger point of view? What does a tail strike, bird strike, engine flame out, decompression, and a lot more feel from a passenger perspective? Thanks and regards from Ian Millington in the UK.
It's a good question. I think it depends on the failure. I think a lot of them will be completely transparent to the passengers. There'll be a lot of scenarios where, if I think of all the different stuff that I've had over the years, probably a lot of them the passengers had no idea about until we had to either divert or do something.
Yep.
But
it's interesting. Like there are certain things, like bird strike in the engine, for example, you might notice.
Yeah,
if it suddenly starts smelling like a bad version of Kentucky Fried Chicken in the cabin, well, then you've ingested a bird in the right-hand engine on a 737. We get that smell first if we do the same in the left-hand engine because of the way that the air conditioning system is built. Decompression is obvious.
Yeah.
If that happens, you will see the masks dropping down. You'll see the cabin crew act in a specific way. You need to get your mask on first and then help any others and things like that. And then you'll feel the aircraft, what you would perceive as a violently starting to descend, what is in reality a controlled but rapid descent from the front. And the reason for that is your oxygen generators that you have on top of your seats, they're only active for about 13-14 minutes or so. So if we would stay at altitude and you would then breathe oxygen for 13-14 minutes, but then that would stop and you would still be in the same situation. So we need to get down. We need to get down to around 10,000 feet in order for everyone to be able to breathe without any type of problem. Now, our masks are different. We have oxygen cylinders that goes for much longer than that, depending on how many people are in the cockpit. But but that's another thing that you will notice then is that you'll smell a smell of burning.
Yes.
The oxygen generators, when they start working, they will be hot, really hot, and they're going to start burning up, especially the dust that settles on them. So like a decompression is probably, if you're afraid of flying, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. It's going to be probably a bang, a hiss, your ears might pop, the things will fall down, so you get what we call the rubber jungle in the cabin. The aircraft will pitch forward, start descending, and at the same time you will smell like burning. So it's like there's a lot of really bad things that will happen at once there. But all of it is within the realms of what we train for.
It is. Yeah, and I think one we're seeing, I see on social media a few more times than maybe recently, are things like engine surges where they've hit a bird and you'll see it looks really dramatic and it sounds really dramatic, where an engine will suddenly start popping and banging. So you'll see it be a bit like a Lamborghini downshifting, but not as fun, where it'll suddenly you see flames coming out the back, bang, 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 bang out of the back of the engine. And if you're in the cabin, you're going to see like this fire coming out. So it looks really dramatic. But effectively, as soon as you shut the engine down, it all just stops.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or even sometimes you can just pull it back a little bit.
Back to idle even.
Yeah. Back a little bit. Yeah. So absolutely. So there are a couple of things that you will notice, but most of the things that Ben says, if there's something that has to do with our engines, but we don't have to shut them down, you won't notice it. If we do have to shut them down, it's unlikely that you will notice it, at least in the beginning.
Yeah. The aim is that you don't notice it.
No, because an engine failure in itself, you probably won't even hear it.
No.
You might notice if you really listen for it, but who does? If you think about it, when we start descending, we pull the engines back to idle, and you notice that, but not much, and you wouldn't think that that's strange. So a lot of the things is going to be transparent. You're going to hear about it when we make a PA telling you about it, or when the cabin crew starts preparing you for something.
Correct.
Right. Hello, captains. Danielle here. In some Entropilot videos, you have mentioned test pilots. Can you elaborate more on them? What kind of trainings did they have to follow? Keep up the fantastic work. Cheers. So test pilots is actually a specific training course to become a test pilot. And it's very advanced from what I've heard. I can't remember the length now, but obviously you have to have a certain amount of experience as a normal pilot, or normally they tend to come from the Air Force, the test pilots. And then they go through this course where they basically just learn how to go through a rigorous testing program of an aircraft, what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to evaluate the way that the aircraft responds to certain maneuvers, and making sure that it keeps within certain criteria. So it's very, very formal. It's nothing like going out and just like, let's see what this girl can do now.
No. It's it's one of the most risky elements of aviation, because you're pushing the aircraft to its absolute limits, and often beyond that, and then trying to get it back in within its controlled envelope. So it's a dangerous element of it, and people have died, unfortunately, doing it. But it's a very demanding course, from what I understand. They still use Hawker Hunters, what I understand, as well, in the military in the UK anyway. And but yeah, it's very rigorous, very precise. Everything's very much specified as to what they're going to do. You need a great knowledge of aerodynamics, practical aerodynamics. So it's a lot of theory too.
Yeah, because sometimes they're not. I mean, yes, they're pushing the aircraft outside of its limits in order to basically the manuals that we have will set up like, okay, this is how much you're allowed to do. This is the max demonstrated crosswind, for example. It's built on what these test pilots have done to a certain extent. They've gone out and they've tested it. Like, well, now we can't really maintain runway heading anymore. So this is too much. And then they reduce it down to what us normal, deadly, mortal pilots can do. But it's also, like you said, there's a lot of aerodynamics, and it's a different type of thinking, I think. And this is where Boeing had some issues in the past around, for example, MCAS and stuff, where the test pilots reacted in one way.
Yes.
Right. So the test pilots were like, okay, you find that this happens to you, the stabilizer starts running away or whatever, and then they react in a way that a test pilot would react. While in reality, when this is being shown to normal pilots, they don't react neither as fast or in the same exact way as a test pilot might do. So it's tricky. It's very tricky to certify new aircraft, because
it reminds me, I've done a very little bit of post-maintenance test flying in light aircraft, and it reminds me in a similar way to air show flying, in that air shows kind of look like you're just going up there and hooning an airplane around, having fun for 20 minutes, but everything's obviously super documented and prescripted as to what you're going to do. Very much the same with that. You get airborne, you've got to climb at a certain airspeed, you've got to deploy a certain degree of flap, you've got to note rate of climb changes every 30 seconds and so on. So there's a lot. It's very, very prescriptive as to what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Neither one of us has done that course, so we can't really go into any specifics, but we have the greatest respect for our test pilot colleagues. And we're up to an hour and 5 minutes now, so I think that's all of the questions. Continue sending in your questions. We might either respond to them like we did here, or we might create an entire episode around them. So keep sending them in, because they are really great.
Yeah, absolutely. So also a big shout out to me, to Marcus, ops manager at Karlsruhe. Thank you for looking after us. Absolute gent. And
awesome. I think with that, Ben, have a really nice continuation of the day, and I'm going to go and get some cake.
Thank you. Enjoy the day. Happy birthday, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. See you next week.
Take care. Bye.